All right, traders, good afternoon. Christian Farmer's Tribeca Trade Group. Well, it's not good afternoon anymore. I messed up the first video because the mute button was on. Let me just double check. The mute button is not on this time. So I'll do a very quick run through of today's action. Again, apologies for why the first video was on mute. I don't know why. But it was. So we'll get to today's price action. I mean, pretty, once again, exciting markets, I would say. You know, we've really had some nice outperformance. This has now been going on for a couple of weeks, and it's been a pretty fun market to trade. There's been a lot of rotations that are really kind of keeping you on your toes. So I would say, you know, just looking at the index charts and just noticing what the performance was for the day, S&P was up 1.2%. The Qs outperformed there above the S&P. They were up 1.7% out of for the day. Again, a lot of the gains coming there in the after hours, or I should say, not after hours market, but early, right before the markets opened. We saw another kind of ramp into the open. So really, the S&P didn't move that much intraday, about a third of a percentage point, kind of oscillated back and forth, but came out, you know, above pretty nicely. Where the real outperformance for the day was with the IWM, with the small caps, right? That was something that we talked about, that we thought, you know, considering that they actually were down and underperformed last week, that it might be kind of a little bit of a catch-up trade. Well, we really got that one right, because I did put together a nice call spread in the Russell 2000 index, which matures in a couple days, but got the performance that I needed today with IWM up 2.7%. The micro caps were also really strong today. Bonds were not a factor today. They were, you know, you didn't hear too many people talk about the actual performance in TLT. You heard, of course, about the yield curve and all that. I'm not going to get into that because it's been overplayed already in terms of how many people are talking about it. Gold, silver, they were both started down the day, but they actually finished fairly decent for the day. Gold was basically flat for the day. Remember, before I kind of go into the technicals in the indices, remember, this is one of those situations where we have seen for the last few months anything commodities outperform and do well. And that, of course, started before Ukraine, Russia, but, you know, really got amplified and moved more based on that. But all of those trades kind of moved together, right? What I'm referring to is the energy trade, the agriculture, you know, so anything, you know, energy, those three ETFs, XLE, OIH, XOP, then the agriculture trade, so names like CF, NTR, ADM, MOS, Mosaic, right? Those are also moving. They're kind of the same type of trade. Gold and silver have been, to a lesser extent, in that bucket as well. The uranium names have been moving that way as well. So all of these things, which we've now talked about for the last couple of weeks, that just to kind of be prepared a little bit, if there was some type of de-escalation, or even, you know, going forward, which I think everybody hopes that we do get, is this conflict ends, you know, there will be some type of reversion from overbought levels. And many of those stocks kind of came in decently, right? And there's a couple other groups too, but let's just keep going in this video and let's get to the technicals. So clearly we've had this massive run up since the last couple of weeks, right? Now, there is no sell signal here. We've been seeing market breadth be, you know, very strong over the last, which has been confirming the move. However, we're starting to get a little bit overbought here, right? And especially when you think about quarter end and some of the implications with that the next 2 days. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get a little bit of choppiness or a little bit of a pullback because of that. But I think that would actually be pretty healthy for the market. And if you're looking ahead, once we get to Friday, which is going to be Jobs Friday as well, right? And possibly new money could be put to work. So if, you know, just kind of thinking ahead for the next couple of days, if we get some type of a check back or a little bit of volatility in equities the last couple of days of the month, on the horizon is April, which is also a very nice seasonally strong month. So keep that in mind after the run that we've had the last couple of weeks, but no sell signal. but and the market breadth has been confirming the rally. We've seen what we refer to all the time is that the wind has been at our backs in terms of increasing breadth, right? Versus when it's not, when it's contracting, we've had the wind in our face. Well, the last couple of weeks, the breadth has been expanding, so that's been pretty good, right? NASDAQ is also over the 200-day moving average, right? That's the first time that that's happened for basically since back on February 1st, right? We're going to be hitting some resistance up here. That's a virgin point of control up there. And what I was referring to before was IWM, which has gotten, nice little move outside of the value area. This is textbook trading with value areas, right? A move through value area, you check back a little bit, right? And then you go, right? So that was the trade that I was looking for today, and we certainly got it. Where could this IWM be going? Because we did see a lot of short-term call positioning in IWM, looking for like some more momentum in this. So possibly 218, also a level to be cognizant too, is on the weekly chart. And you can see that we've got the bottom of value coming up, 214, and that'll be really interesting if that gets back into the range. Clearly we had a false break to the upside, and we'll see how this bottom of value check back ends up working out, provided that we get there right around 214. All right, so that's the indices. If you look to I think really what today was a little bit of a continuation from yesterday, just a rotation, which was spurred by more of the possibility of Ukraine and Russia kind of coming into some type of agreement. I think that really kind of caused a little bit of rotation pre-market. Also was based on what we saw towards the end of yesterday, where we saw a lot of the meme stocks go. Plus, we saw a lot of option activity in things like Snowflake. We saw call activity in Upstart. We saw call activity in Zscaler, mostly all short-term stuff. And those trades all worked out pretty nicely. What I thought was particularly interesting too, which I've got a number of single stock charts I'm going to go through, but look at the best performance from the open. So once again, things like the oil services, right? Now they all gapped down on that news this morning, but look at how they finished. Right, they actually finished up for the day, both oil services and the gold miners, as well as the XOP ETF. All of those finished up for the day. And look at the oil services ETF, finished up 4.3% for the day. Other things that have been kind of oversold, retail was amongst one of the best performing groups. XRT was up 4%. The builders, how bad those have gotten beaten up recently. They've been an underperformer. They rallied 3%. So a little bit of a catch-up trade. All right, so let's go through a couple of the stocks. I mentioned energy, so we'll start there. This is one of the trades, buy the dip trade that I took today. Devon Energy. This name has been so strong that I love it when I get a dip in this name, and it worked out pretty well, right? So if we go over to our trades channel, let me just get out of this. All right, here was my trade this morning. By the way, here I mentioned the IWM trade, right? Here's how we did that. Let me just get to today's trade blotter. Right, so you could see all the trades, but I started taking targets in the morning, right off the open, just to make sure I locked something in. And I took my final target here in RUT, the 2100 2110 call spread for 750. I paid 340 for that one. And then what I did was I rolled that out to another one. The reason why I didn't try to get the last 250 on the $10 wide spread is because I've got 2 more days, and it's too much. The risk reward is not in the favor of me trying to get the last 250, right? If we do get some volatility, then I could potentially lose the 750 on that. So what I did is I just rolled it up to the 2150, 2160, got in that for $2, and I think it was already marking close to $3 based on what time I rolled that at 2 o'clock today. All right, so I mentioned Devon Energy. I was actually able to hit a couple targets with that trade. All right, I put that on for 58.77. Took a target there at 60.40. Other charts to kind of go through, which I find interesting. Costco, right, is out to new highs. Sneaky, isn't that? Costco made it all the way back out to new highs just like that. Again, I think it's really important to notice what names are going to either continue to lead, like a Costco, or if they're going to be new names. Now, we've certainly seen, agriculture names, energy names be the leaders, and some other areas of commodities too. But it'll be really interesting to see what out of tech starts to do that. Since I've talking about Alcoa as well, and I like to kind of cover these names too, but into the 20-day moving average and bounced pretty nicely, almost finished up on the day. Speaking of CF industries too, again, just found this really interesting. Look at the hammer bar, right? So again, extended, right, all the way up to 109, pulled all the way back. Here's a good example of a virgin point of control that was taken out right around the lows of the session there, right? So price always will go and try to figure out where there was a virgin point of control, where there's a high area of volume but has not been revisited. So really nice reversal. I mean, again, crazy that these names move this much, all the way down to $90, finished up at 99. Crazy volatility. All right. Costco, and then my trade setup. This is one of the first things that I wanted to get involved in today was Microsoft. Why Microsoft? Because I just really like how this is starting to resolve itself out of this little, I don't know, double bottom. I'm not sure if you want to call it a inverted head and shoulders, maybe more of a abstract inverted head and shoulders. But I like the fact that it got above value. I also like where I know the trade is not going to work. And that would be a move back inside value or the 200-day moving average. What gets really interesting at Microsoft, in my opinion, is when you look at the monthly chart, which I don't have actually that time frame on this. I'm at home, but that's okay. We could look at that in terms of the weekly chart as well. Notice how similar. A couple of weeks ago we talked about things like Tesla. Names like Tesla that made it back above its 2022 value area, right here above, 878, right? And then we had some follow through from that. Another one that we've talked about 2 weeks ago when it made it back above its 2022 value area was Nvidia, right? And here was the close in that bar a couple of weeks back. So yes, nothing is 100%, of course, but I'm looking for the same thing to occur. Now that we have reestablished ourselves back above value, I'm looking by chance for this to at least get back into this range up in here. So really like that. That was a trade that I added today. I kind of legged into that this morning. You can see me get right involved in that in the around the open, but as discussed pre-market in our pre-market session, that I would be legging into it. And I added to it here, and then I actually added to it about an hour after the open as well, as the market dipped a little bit, gave me a little bit of a chance to get into it. I took my profits in ED, Con Ed, right? This was a nice trade. One of the areas that people haven't really been paying attention to is the utilities. This was a nice breakout of consolidation, right? And I decided to take profits in this one today. A few other names that I thought were interesting today. LNTH, right, gave us a little bit of a dip. Remember, this is a medical device company. Probably not that many people were familiar with this name when it reported earnings. Had this stellar earnings report, kept going, gave you a little bit of a check back to the 20-day moving average, and got close to, I think, $57 today. So the dip was bought in this one, right? And that's one I've been long. I did not add to it though on the dip. I thought AMD looks interesting as well, continues to kind of move the right way. Let's go back to that weekly chart on AMD just to look at the bigger picture. Here's your level to trade against. I would say 119, and we'll see if this one wants to kind of start to also break back above the 2000 22 value area. If it breaks back inside 119, you know, probably move on from it in the short term, right? Long term, great name, but in terms of shorter term trading, I want to see this thing stay above 119. That's an important level for me. All right, Sweet Green. I think the weekly chart is important to look at here, right? It's a new stock, but $37, right, is something I would be watching. Notice that it has tried to break out once there. It's also may have another attempt by the end of the week, but and you could see that there's a $40 VPOC up there too, which I'll look to target. This is a name we put on last week, very strong. All right, a couple other names, newer names. Right. I find this setup pretty interesting. This is Dutch Bros, the coffee company, right? So made it, broke out above value. It's has to deal with a little bit of resistance in the short term. Where am I going to find that resistance? On the 1 hour chart, right? So you're going to see that virgin point of control taken out there, right? And that's from back in here. And then you got another one up here at 69. So if you're interested in this name and you're not in it yet, I would make sure it stays above 64. Or if you're already in it, right, then I would make sure it stays at least above 60. Even better if it stays above 62. It's okay when these virgin point of controls get taken out. You just don't want to see a complete fade the other way. So, you know, a little bit of digestion is fine. If it can stay above 64, I think the next place that it gets to is 69.40. All right. And then a couple other names, you know, obviously, you know, names that saw option activity, you know, a lot of beaten up areas that are kind of reverting back up, you know, Robinhood was one of those names. Yeah, it just gives you, you know, kind of my thought on this, why this name went up 24% is because it's so oversold. And any positive news, although I don't think today's news was that important, that they're offering after hours trading, something every other brokerage system offers. But at this point, the thing is just so oversold. I think really a good place to kind of sell into, in my opinion, right? Because it's really not any groundbreaking news that they're doing that. But to each is their own, but I would be selling any pops, especially in a name that's in a downtrend, right? I thought it was a nice gift if you happen to be in it. But again, you know, it was a 9. I get why people gave this thing a shot at $9 or $10. It's a buyout candidate, and the most that you could lose is the $9 or $10, right? So a nice move up to 15, and that's probably a decent gain if you really did some bottom picking. Another name that I found interesting, the payment space was very strong today. You know, if you are a regular viewer of my videos, you know that I'm a trend trader. I don't mess around with a lot of names in downtrends for investments, but for a trade, this is kind of interesting. You have a inverted head and shoulders going on here. So left shoulder, head, right shoulders. The top of value could represent the neck. Notice that this went up to the virgin point of control right around 140, checked back a little bit, right? We were just looking at that bros. This is kind of what you would want to see, just a little bit of digestion and a move higher. I think this thing could maybe go up to, before I say 167, let me just see if there's anything here that we need to watch. Yeah, maybe 166, 167, right? That would be a nice move. And you could use a stop of right around 140 to see if Square wants to get going. And I definitely like the Square chart better than PayPal. Right, look at the two charts. One is above the 50-day moving average and outside of the value area. The other one is not. So here's a nice bounce, right? But you now have to contend with resistance at the 50-day moving average and at 125. Go back again, look at Square. Notice how much better that looks in terms of a bottoming process. Very nice. One other name too that saw some option activity today, which is Netflix. If you're interested in Netflix, I would be mindful of that support at 374. But notice it closed right around closed above the 50-day moving average, and you could use the 50-day moving average there as well. Again, not my favorite looking chart, but I get that some of these names could for a trade, you know, pop a little bit more. Another one too that's gotten forgotten that I find interesting is this Docs, right? This is a name that had good earnings, just I think encountered a very difficult market in February, and it actually filled the earnings gap and broke back to the lows. So possible double bottom here and a little bit of digestion. I would really like to see it get above 54. That would tell me that we've got something more than, just a little bounce that it's had so far, and maybe some institutions are getting involved in the name at this point. All right, guys, that is it for the aftermarket video. Again, really exciting market that we've had on our hands. It's certainly not dull. Just be mindful that we've been on a nice run the last couple of weeks. So I do my best to try to take profits, rotate into some other areas of the market, not to get overexposed into the end of the month, and try to be pretty fresh for the first of the month if we kind of come back and recheck a little bit of support. All right, guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow.